welcome to Tar Heel Teachers at Home. I'm Marlo Artist, proud principal of Craven Early College High School and the moderator of this program. Tar Heel Teachers at Home is an interview series focused on engaging North Carolinians in conversations around education. Each week, I'm happily joined by a wonderful panel of educators, each one representing a particular subsection of education. We'll start our introductions with our elementary school co-host.
Good evening. My name is Amy Tart, and I'm the assistant principal at Union Elementary School in Sampson County.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Natalia Mejia. I'm the NCAT 2023 Empower North Carolina Beginning Teacher of the Year. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at C.C. Griffin STEM Middle School, and I teach ESL.
Hello, I'm Tanyas Smith. I'm the 2020 Burroughs Wellcome Fund Piedmont Triad Teacher of the Year, and I teach vocal music at Elkin High School and Elkin Middle School.
Awesome. For this episode of Tar Heel Teachers at Home, we are catching up with Leah Carper, who is the 2022 Burroughs Wellcome Fund North Carolina Teacher of the Year. Leah is the Director of Stakeholder Engagement for Guilford County Schools. Leah, welcome back to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We're really excited to chat with you, Leah, and catch up. We know that you've been very busy since the last time that you appeared on our program. And today you had a lot of action. So tell us about what you were up to today, because you're always up to something good.
So today was the second annual North Carolina Bring Your Legislator to School Day, which is an initiative that the Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year Network kind of threw together last year to ask all of our legislators to go into schools and ask all of our educators to invite our legislators to go into schools all on the same day. The purpose of the day was to try to engage in conversation and to foster relationships, because I'm going to tell you all this. I traveled the state as a state teacher of the year. What a wonderful opportunity. And so many educators ask me, do they even know what goes on at schools over there in Raleigh? Do they have any idea? When's the last time they were in a building? And then when I'm talking to legislators, they'll say things like, well, when I was in a school 3 days ago, I saw this. What do you think about this? And the truth is, many of our legislators are going to schools and engaging, and we need to connect those dots. We need to show our educators, give them some hope, but also give our educators a voice and give them the opportunity to share the things that their students need so they can be most successful. And our legislators jumped on it, y'all. Like, they were like, of course, we'd love to. Last year, we had over 65 participants. This year, we've had over 75 participants. And we are so excited because all the way across the state, y'all, there are legislators who are normally, working in Raleigh, making decisions. They were riding buses, they were eating school meals, they were chatting with students, visiting classrooms, looking at innovative programs, asking those good questions. And it's been so fun to watch. So if you want to take a look at some of the action that happened today, look at the hashtag NCGA School Day, which means North Carolina General Assembly School Day, and check it out and see the things that are going on. It's been cool to see like things in the mountains and things by the ocean and everything in between. So that was today. And in my district, it's okay that I share what we did in my district?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. So I work in Guilford County Schools. This is where I taught. I taught there for years and years. And then after I was State Teacher of the Year, they hired me to run stakeholder engagement. So I help with policy, government affairs, and partnerships, which is really fun for me because I'm all about like, let's connect people, right? And so in my district today, our legislators started their day with a breakfast with students. So they sat with students and with members of our Board of Education all at the same table, and they were chatting it up. Y'all, it was so cute. So like Senator Mike Garrett walked in, and this cutie named Jackson, he was like, Senator Garrett, will you be my best friend? And Senator Garrett looked at him and he goes, I already am your best friend. And I'm going to tell you this right now, this 7th grader's face was like, I'm best friends with the senator. It was so cute. And they had so much fun taking selfies together, but also like actually asking the good questions, like, what do you like about school here? And what do you wish that we knew? And then our superintendent shared like some of our legislative priorities, because you have to do that, you guys. We have to tell them the things that we need, right? And then after that, our students engaged in a panel discussion. So we had students sharing with our legislators what they need to know. I asked a pretty interesting, I thought it was an interesting question. The question was, many districts are struggling to keep teachers or to hire teachers sometimes. Why do you think that is? And from the student perspective, it was so good. So many of they had cool answers. They said things like, being a teacher is hard. They have work on top of just teaching. And I was like, say it, best friend. And one kid was like, not to mention the pay. And I was like, go kids. The kids understand that, right? And then another kid said, they have options. Teachers have so many options. They could go and be other things. And so some of them go take that opportunity. And I wanted to fill in the gap and be like, they would like to stay if there was, we were industry equal as far as pay, but I did not do that. I figured that our friends connected those dots, but it was cool to hear it from the student perspective, So after the student panel, we had a performance, y'all. This school that we went to, their musical, Tanya, is High School Musical. And so the kids came in and saying, we're all in this together. Because we are. Right? We are. And they did the dance and it was so cute. And they got the standing ovation, of course. And then after that, our wonderful legislators went to take other school tours. They got to pick a school that they wanted to see based on a program that they might be interested in. So that's what Guilford County Schools did. But I mean, districts everywhere had cool programs. I saw legislators reading books to children. I saw them on the Twitter. I saw them, or that's not what's called anymore. On X, I saw legislators chatting with students, being in classrooms, like working with manipulatives with students. It was cool, you guys. And it gives me like incredible hope when I think that our legislators want to do this. And it's not just for the good press. Okay. That's not what it is. Legislators, when I ask them about their day, they tell me, they're like, no, I never thought about this like that. Or I really enjoyed talking to a specific student about this specific thing. And from last year, what I noticed was legislators became friends with teachers. And so when legislation slid across their desk, they had someone they could call and they felt comfortable calling because they'd already established a relationship. And that's the purpose of bringing a legislator to school day.
Which is really great. I mean, we have to make sure we have that open dialogue, build those connections and relationships, and make certain that we are working in partnerships. I love that. I have not been able to participate just yet as a principal. Today we had a strategic planning session. And so next year I plan to invite some legislators to Craven Early College because it is really, really important that they have a chance to see how the decisions that they're making impact our schools and our students and our staff. And so I love that you're doing that. What questions do we have for Leah Carper, Director of Stakeholder Engagement for Guilford County Schools?
May I change the subject just a little?
Yes, do it.
Okay, so I have a question, and it because I am a huge advocate, number one, and it's autism awareness right now.
It is.
And in vocal music classes, very often I've had autistic students that flourish. So not only did your article that I just read touch my teacher heart, but it also touched my mama heart. My child is not neurodivergent, but he grew up and had a neurodivergent friend who was autistic. And I have a best friend, colleague who has an autistic son that has been very successful. And of course, that's all over the spectrum. I just don't feel that I felt that you did a wonderful job advocating for it and bringing awareness to the situation. How can we as public educators piggyback and help you? What can we do as public schools to make the greater public aware of this? I mean, because it's so prevalent, and what you wrote it just really tugged at me. So how do we teach? How do we teach the world about this special person, these special people?
So to give some context to Tanya's question, it's Autism Awareness Month, and my son has autism, and he's 9. He's a 3rd grader in a public school, and he struggles a lot, not necessarily because his teachers don't. I mean, he has the best teachers and the best administrator I've ever met. Sorry, Marlo, you're great too. Like the best, he has the best of everything. He struggles noises, smells, tapping of a desk, too many people in a room, unfamiliar activities, textures. It genuinely sends his body into a spiral, and oftentimes he'll respond in anger. And so I wrote an op-ed this week that was picked up by a few newspapers, just to kind of share that, yes, it's Autism Awareness Month, but just to be aware that it's there is not enough. People who have any type of neurodivergence, it's a struggle to live in a world that you feel like wasn't made for you. And that's language that I've heard from many people on the spectrum. And I see it in my son all the time. You know, we did a trip to Florida and went to the Harry Potter world. And you would think it's the most magical place on earth, right? For my son, it was a nightmare. He spent most of the time in a stroller covering his head, miserable. And that's because it wasn't very magical. The smells and the sounds and the everything, it was just too much. And so, and a few times when we were on that trip, or any trip, grocery store, doesn't matter, he might respond in anger because his body is just responding. And many times we might get reactions from people. One time, I heard somebody say, that kid needs a spank. And I looked at that woman like, I wish that could help. Actually, that'd be great, but that's not what it is, right? It was hurtful and it was sad. And a lot of times people look at anyone who's different, quote unquote, and doesn't have any empathy. And so in the op-ed, I talked about how we need to make a shift from awareness to acceptance and maybe even connection. And could we think about how it's not just about, oh, I'm aware that you exist, person. It's more of, you know, I can tell that something's going on and it doesn't affect me. That's the thing. So many people judge each other in this world because they think, oh, you're so different. But the truth that, how does that affect you at all? Like, shh, this kid is not bothering you. You're fine. Go on, enjoy your grocery store run and leave me alone. Or maybe ask how you can help. But the best way you can help really is just like leave me alone and keep walking. But in his case, don't talk to him. But I feel like how can we help others? I think we have to educate them. And that's why the beginning of that piece that I wrote was about really helping people understand what is going on in as best as I could illustrate. And I used my son helped me with it, which I was very grateful for. What is going on in someone's head in a situation that I would consider to be pretty normal, you know, a trip to the park, trip to the science center, school cafeteria. And I think it's about awareness. We need to know what it is, right? Autism Awareness Month, but then we need to act on it. And how do I teach? Through example. I'm kind. I do not judge. I share kind words. I like to text my friends who I know their kids are struggling with something and say, hey, mama, I see you out there. You're doing great things. Look for the good in people and try to shine that on others. You know who does that really well? Third graders. Third graders are great at this. The children have already figured it out. Okay. My son has classmates. I'll go visit his classroom and they will tell me the great things about Charlie. They'll explain to me how wonderful he is. And that does everything to me. It's not the kids who don't accept him. Autism Acceptance Month they don't need that. We have to tell the adults that it's time for Autism Acceptance Month. We need to learn from the kids.
So I love that. I'm just going to follow up by saying that I love how you described that we need to learn from the kids, because I've often said, and I know you probably feel similarly, that I learn more from my students than they could ever teach me. But I also feel very strongly that we need to educate the public that all kids have value and all kids can contribute to society. And I am your biggest cheerleader in that corner.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And it was such a brave thing to do. And I admire you for doing it. And I'm so grateful that you did.
Can I be momentarily vulnerable about that?
Please.
When I became state teacher of the year, you know, I knew I have a son with special needs. Like I've known that for a long time. I was scared to share that. And a few weeks ago, someone who I talked to on the reg was like, I didn't know that about your son. And it was because I didn't want to have to be the person who talked about it, because I was worried that that would be the thing that everyone needed me to talk about. And it, as a parent of a kid with special needs, that's a mammoth task, to be the voice for all kids with special needs. And sometimes when you have and I'm not saying teacher of the year is this big crown or whatever, but sometimes when you have a platform, people expect you to be the speaker of the thing that you represent. And so I was afraid to do it, Tanya. I was afraid to be that vulnerable. But there are many conversations that I've had in the past few weeks about my son. And so I talked to him about it. And I said, Charlie, what do you think about sharing with the world some information about you so that more people can understand who you are? And he's like, let's do it. You know, he's 9 and he's wonderful. But then I said to him, but Charlie, you do know that now everyone is going to know that you have autism. And he said, Mom, I do have autism. And that was it for me. Why am I so, and it's not that I'm afraid, but like, why am I so holding back when he's like, he tells everybody, you know, because it's not something that there's no shame in that.
That's right. That's right.
And there was no shame at all for that. And for me, it wasn't shame. It was fear that I would have to be the one, you know, like it was that for me. But I love that with him and with so many of his friends and his peers and neurodivergent friends, the way that your brain works is beautiful. And he's not ashamed of it at all. So I realized it was time to share. So there's my vulnerable moment for you. I was scared. Now you know.
No, I thank you as a musician and as someone defined me recently as an HSP, a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's definitely not autism, but oftentimes we're judged for having big feelings. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Leah, I just wanted to piggyback off that same thing. I loved your article. It really resonated with me and came at a perfect time, because me being a new assistant principal with lower elementary, which I'm not quite used to the littles, we are seeing a higher, statistically prevalence of autism. I was reading that the CDC said actually in 2018, North Carolina was number 5 in the nation for the highest numbers of autism. And I'm kind of grateful for that, because I feel like we are getting more early identification and, getting resource out there. What more do you think that we need to do as far as training and things to incorporate as a state to prepare these children? Because all the time I'm hearing from my teachers, I want to know what to do. Like, I want to know how to help. I just don't know how. So what do you think we can do as a state to kind of push some professional development and some resources out for teachers to help these students flourish?
This is a great question. First thing we need are more school psychologists. Our ratios are out of control. We need more of them, and but smaller caseloads. We have to have that. And that way our students can be served in schools, and also so that they can be identified for free. That is something. So when we were having my son identified, we went through the school system because it's a free resource. Getting it done privately is so expensive, but also it takes forever. But also right now, because of how many students are being identified, it is also taking forever. And we don't have the resources for that. We have to pay them well so that they want to work in schools, and we have to get more of them. But the thing is, the pipeline does not exist. There are not enough people going into that role. So if anyone is listening today and wondering what you should do with your life, and you want to make decent money and you want to help people in this world who might feel like they are not accepted or might not feel like the world was made for them, can you please become a psychologist and work in our schools? We really need you to do that. There will always be a job for you. That's the first thing that we need. And then if we can't have that, we do need training. We need our teachers to know. When I was in college, I went to a traditional education prep program. We had one class on special needs. One class, and it covered all of them. And not to disrespect to my alma mater, but it was more about awareness versus here are strategies that can help you. It was like, oh, you're gonna have a kid with ADHD. Here's what that is. You're gonna have a kid who might have dyslexia. Here's what that looks like. Great. What do I do about that? We need to move away from just awareness to what do I do about it? Acceptance and moving forward. And so all of that would really help. But boy, do we need more school psychologists for sure.
And then kind of tying that into your amazing role that I love that Guilford County has, how do we kind of tie in, communicate, or like communicating with families and family engagement and kind of provide those family resources? Because like you said, a lot of parents, I think they come in and they're like, I can't get my kid tested, or it's going to take months. And I see parents that are frustrated as well because they want to help their children and they maybe are struggling how. So how do you think community engagement can tie into really helping these parents and helping these students?
I've seen some pretty great models nationally of school districts who partner with private practices, where they'll give like 1 day a month or 2 days a month to help with like certain parts of caseloads. So they can help with identification and maybe pick up like 4 or 5 students along the way. I love that idea of how can we get our private practices who are flourishing to give back to the community in some type of way, which I think is beautiful. But also when we were getting my son tested, we went through a whole like, are we sure he's not just 3? Right? Like, are we sure about that? Is he not just acting like a 3-year-old? Like, is there really, and I'm an educator, you guys, like, but I still was like, I was unsure. We need more awareness and toolkits for parents to kind of like screen on their own. Internet searches all night long. And I mean, the emotions you can probably imagine of, how can I help my son? How can I help my child who I love more than anything? And so if we could create toolkits for families to figure out the step-by-step procedures, there are some districts who have that really who do that really well. And then some who, there's just not enough of whatever. It'd be great if we could do that on a state level, create a place where people can go and say, okay, first thing you need to do is see this. And then here's the next step. So people can understand the process. Because what I noticed about being a special needs mom is that all the special needs moms know how to do the thing after they've done it a few years. And they're the ones going to each other about it. It isn't necessarily like districts coming to us. Like we're kind of like little insider info. Okay, so what you got to do is you got to go in there and you got to ask for this and this, or get an advocate who can give you this or this. But the truth is we shouldn't have to do that. We should all work together. And so, and as I dug deeper into, my district's great about stuff like that, but as I dug deeper into other districts and looking in, we could all do a little bit better. We need to be more communicative with families and let them know that we're here for you. The whole point of school, y'all, is to help every kid, and our students with neurodiversity or any kind of diversity, they're in our schools and they need to feel like we're here to help them. And so I love that question about how can we communicate it more? How can we help our families? How can we give them the resources that they need? And I also think that we need to work together as educators to do that too. Like we could take some of that on, some of the collective knowledge that we all have, and try to bridge the gap as well.
Thank you so much. Because as you're talking, I see the little faces in my mind, like this student and this student and this student. And, like you said, they have so many passions and they have so many quirks and things that they are so, so good at, but those big emotions get in the way. And I think it kind of stigmatizes them. So really trying to educate the educators of, hey, I know that you see these big feelings, but also I want you to see the passion and these other things that make him great and make him incredible and unique. So I really appreciate you speaking on that, because again, in my head, I'm like, I see him and I see her. So thank you.
My favorite, not to say my favorite line that I wrote, but something that I like to tell people when we're talking about anybody is reframing this concept of many teachers will be like, oh, he's giving me such a hard time. But the truth is he's actually having a hard time and it's not about you. That person's having a hard time. And so for me, that was so important to include in the op-ed and just in a lot of the advocacy work I do around this. It's take yourself out of it, educator, and it take yourself personally out of it and think, how can I help? Versus, man, this little friend of mine, giving me a struggle. And I understand that it can be frustrating because you care so much, but imagine how much that kid's struggling. Stuff to think about.
Leah, what you are saying about providing teachers with what they need, toolkits, in order to reach the diverse learners is really leading into one of the questions I had for you. You've had such a great opportunity to speak to such a broad range of educators throughout our state. What kind of preparation goes into your presentations or your speeches when you have opportunities to speak to teachers of special populations? I work in the AIG department in my district, and you spoke at our conference last year. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
But I know that's different from a talk that you might give. I don't know if you went to a health and PE conference, but what
I
goes
want to do
into
that. Now invite me.
But what really goes into that preparation as you're trying to make sure that you're equipping teachers with what they need?
So something I always try to do is make it personal. No one cares about like statistics and stuff like deeply until they're connected into something, right? So I try to think of a story that fits with this. So for like, I went to a STEM conference and I was like, oh, can't relate. Like, how am I supposed to relate to this? And I tried to find a way to relate like a story from my students or my life where an educator inspired me or helped me understand something. And that's where I always start. I start with a story because I want to wrap people in. And as a teacher, as an high school English teacher, you have to have a through line, right? This is getting really in the weeds here, but you have to have like a through line where you start with like a metaphor or a story and then you carry it through the whole thing. I just think that's like what makes a presentation kind of good. So I start with a story, but then I try to think about what do I know about the state of whatever the concept is. So if it's AIG teachers, what do I know about AIG teachers? And then what do they need? And can I just be real with all of you? You know what every educator needs right now? They just need to be loved. They need to feel like what they do really matters. Like, and reminders of that all the time, because it's hard out there. It is hard. It is a struggle for us too, right? It's hard. And so I try to find a way to, whatever the topic is, fit the topic, find a few resources I can give, but mostly be a cheerleader, be an encourager, and be a thanker. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. And when I tell stories of impact, I try to help people realize that if this impacted me so much, imagine the things that you are doing that are planting little seeds impacting each other. I tell like the same 10 stories and I just pick which one fits the thing, right? Like as every speaker does usually, as I collect stories, I think of how can I share this in a way that's meaningful to others. But ultimately, what it all kind of boils down to, and most of my like speaking engagements is, thank you. You're creating a world that's so much better than the world any of us had. And it's because of how great you are as an educator, because of your heart. So here's a few things to keep you moving along, but gosh, you're amazing. And I just want them to feel something. My bestie, Ryan Mitchell, he's one of the teacher of the year on my team. He always says to me before I give a speech, he texts me and he'll be like, make them laugh, make them cry, go. And that's like the idea, right? Is that you give them something to feel, you give them something that they can take with them, and then you get them out of there. I don't know if that was a great answer, but that's the one I got.
It was a great answer. Of the things that that you've kind of learned as you've put the work in to present to such, like I said, a broad range of teachers, what's some things that really sticks with you and that you plan on taking with you into the next chapter?
When I think about going out and speaking to large groups of people, I think about how can I talk to all of them at once, just like as a teacher, right? Like we look at how do I get the student in the far back corner, and how do I get the student who's asleep over there, and how do I make that connection? And so sometimes you miss, but the thing that I'm going to take with me the most is afterwards, 4 months later, I might get a message on the X or on TikTok of all places saying, hey, you spoke such and such a time ago, and I did this thing that you said. And I'm going to tell you right now that totally changed my blah, 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 blah. What I take with me is that you don't realize the impact that you have on somebody until forever later. And that means that I need to keep doing that work. Does that make sense? Like it encourages me to keep doing it. When I get a message from somebody from a year ago, or someone who says what you just said, you were at the AIG conference and it was I think it was the Coloring Outside the Lines conference or something. I'm thinking I'm remembering it. And you remembered the thing and you applied the thing, or it shifted how you thought about this. You guys, I want to change the whole world. Don't you all want to change the whole world? I want to change the whole world. But what I realized was, if you can change the way somebody views their world or their role in the world, you change the world. And so that's what I've been trying to keep up with. Because like being teacher of the year and doing all the work and community engagement and all the stuff you're doing, you're like, I'm going to change the world. But little moments of impact are also changing the world. And so I got to keep that in my pockets, and that's what keeps me going.
I will tell you that it was at the very beginning of your presentation. You asked everyone to raise their hand, and you might have done this at another session before, but you asked everybody to raise their hand. And then you
I've
said,
only ever done this here. I only did this here.
And I said,
Yeah.
Everybody raised their hand. And then you said, now raise it high. And then for you all weren't with me for this moment that we had together at the Gifted Conference, but then everyone had to raise their hand a little bit higher and stretch it out. And she talked about, why didn't you do that the first time? Just that little bit of effort. Why didn't you give it all you had the first time? And that kind of led in. And so I just wanted to share that is something that stayed with me and I think about often. So, you can pocket that one for your next chapter.
That means the world to me. I thought about how, because that's what AIG teachers do, right? They stretch students. They help them reach a little bit higher. They push them, they move that needle a little bit. And so back to like, how do you start? I start with a story or an idea, right? And push it all the way through. Thank you for remembering that. That meant a lot to me. I needed that today. Thank you.
Hi, Leah. So
Hey, Talia.
I loved your article, especially because it talks about that narrative shift, right? That idea of we as educators, we as the public, really shifting and putting a person first. And so I really appreciate that. And I'm going to take that with me. And as we talk about how you've really grown as an educator, as a human being, as a global citizen, reflecting back, 2 years ago, you were named Teacher of the Year. How do you feel like you've grown from that experience? What are some of the changes that you truly have felt and the impact that you feel like your legacy is on North Carolina?
Oh gosh, Natalia. First of all, I think I'm softer than I used to be. I used to live a life, not like just 2 years ago, but I remember as a teenager, life was black and white. That was right and that was wrong and that was it, right? And then I think it might just be because I'm 40, but as you age and as you grow and as you meet more people and experience more things and get to sit around more tables where more decisions are made and you understand there's nuance to everything, you realize that life kind of is gray. Everything lives in the gray area and we're all just kind of doing our best to put light on something that's good. And I feel like that has been the most important shift for me, is as I've met more teachers and learned more about education as a whole on the national level, the state level, and on the local level, there's so much that goes into it that I can't be like, yes, or absolutely not. I think the true answers are somewhere in the gray. And it's given me gray hairs thinking about it sometimes. But I feel like we have to be more, like, it's given me this idea to be a little bit more, but what about this and what about that? And it's made me a little softer and not so grumbly or angry about things, because, and while I can be a fierce advocate, I try to advocate softly and through kindness and through gentility and through funny, through being enjoyable to be around, I guess. I don't know, through humor and relatability instead of anger, because people don't really react well to anger. I know I don't. And so it's made me softer, Natalia, like for anything. And it's taught me how nobody is doing it 100% right. But most people that I've met, and I'm going to say most, because we all know there's people, most people I met really are doing the best they can. And it's our job, if that's the best that you can do, and I love the quote, like, when you know better, you can do better. Maybe we can advocate a little bit more so you can do a little better. Like, so you can know better now, and now you can do better, and approach it from that angle of like, I'm, as a teacher, I want to teach you and help shine more light in this area for you versus like, how dare you, you know? And so really my hope is that I've taught my people after me, like my other teachers of the year and teacher leaders in the state, and even members of the public, to advocate kindly, to advocate through pulling people together instead of pushing them apart, you know, to bring people in instead of calling them out, you're calling them in. And that's something that I think is just really important, no matter what sphere you're in, education or, you know, anything, whatever you're advocating for, sharing, do it with love. So that's what I hope, that people see me as an example of that. We'll see, right? You kind of don't know till you die and you read what people write about you. I hope I can read those. God, can I have the Facebook posts? Like, I want to see them. You know, you want to see it. But
I
that's my hope.
love that. I love that. And I think so I'm gonna give you it now rather than after when you're gone. I would like you to know that something that is so admirable about you is that you sound excited for what's to come and you sound hopeful. And I think a lot of educators, we need hope. And we need to feel excited about what's on the horizon because that's what education does. It liberates. And so thank you for being a liberator. Thank you for being an advocate for change and for being hopeful. We love you. We're fans.
That means so much to me. All I want is for people to have hope. I've lived in areas of my life and moments where I didn't feel like there was any of that. But you know, there were people, especially educators in my life, who gave that to me, who made me feel like there was something that's coming up. And so don't we all just want to give what we've been given and maybe a little bit more? Like, that's the point of all this, you know? So I'm grateful. Thank you. Everyone's so nice here. Can we just stay forever?
We
I love
wish
it
that
here.
we wish that we could,
I was like,
Leah,
no,
because
we're closing now.
because we really have enjoyed chatting with you, and the feedback has been so wonderful from your article as well. What has Charlie said about the feedback? Have you shared with him what the kind words that people have said? Because I've read so many positive things that really resonated with people from the article that you all shared.
So Charlie thinks it's funny that a lot of people just know his name because I talk about, you know, you talk about your kids. So he goes in public and people will be like, hey, Charlie. And he's like, Mom, I think I'm famous. Like, people just know my name. Like, we'll be at church. How does she know me? Charlie I told him, and I've read him a few things. He goes, okay. Like, I wish that like there were little ticketed moments like, that's cool, and then moves on. It's not super impactful for him. My hope is that when he's a grown person, that a couple of things will happen. My hope is that the world is just a little bit softer for Charlie, the way we're promoting this for him, and that he can see that, and that maybe years from now, when he's a little more emotionally mature, he can read these things and recognize that even if the world isn't as soft as we'd like for it to be for him, that there are soft places for him to land. And it's in all these people who have said such kind things or shared the article, or who give him a smile, or who don't judge him. So my hope is that he sees the soft places.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that and being so vulnerable, Leah, and sharing your story because it was so beautiful. And keep up the great work. So many great things that you have been able to contribute as our State Teacher of the Year for 2022, but also now as you move into this, or now you're fully in it. I mean, we're almost approaching a year as this role as Director of Stakeholder Engagement. You just continue to do great work. And anytime you want to come on the program, please don't hesitate to reach out. We enjoy chatting with you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. I really enjoy this program. I'm so glad it's back and it's going and we're doing the thing. And also just that all of you care so much about education in North Carolina. You give me hope. You inspire others, and you're giving them a soft place to land too. So thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank our audience so very much for watching our program. We hope that you will engage us on our social media platforms. Please follow us on Twitter at Tar Heel Teachers. Please like our Facebook page. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, tarheelteachers.com. And on all of our social media platforms, please use our hashtag Tar Heel Teachers so we can find all of your great comments. We'd like to thank our wonderful group of co-hosts for joining us for this conversation: Amy Tart, Natalia Mejia, Tanya Smith, and Arisha Smalls. And once again, we'd like to thank our special guest for joining us, Leah Carper, the 2022 Burroughs Wellcome Fund North Carolina Teacher of the Year, and she's now the Director of Stakeholder Engagement for Guilford County Schools, and she reminded us that April is Autism Acceptance Month. We look forward to
Yes.
seeing you next time on Tar Heel Teachers at Home.